Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. It's another big day with California's big tech. Apple has a new feature to expand its data encryption. The changes will include users' photos, messages, and more. One activist flew to Silicon Valley to stage a 7-day hunger strike at Apple's headquarters. He says the latest software update censors its users. And former Twitter employees purged in Elon Musk's takeover has started a fourth lawsuit. This one is alleging discrimination against women. Apple says it plans to expand its end-to-end encryption of iCloud data. iCloud already offers end-to-end encryption for some data categories, but now end-to-end encryption will expand to protect photos, message backups, notes, and others. The feature is called Advanced Data Protection. It can add a robust layer of security to users' information. Advanced Data Protection will also make it impossible for law enforcement to access users' data, including the FBI. End-to-end encryption essentially means that only you can access the data stored in your iCloud device backup. The feature will be coming to the iOS 16.2 software update. Apple says it will be available to the public in the US by the end of 2022. At launch, Advanced Data Protection will be opt-in only. Speaking of future changes on Apple devices, a Chinese activist has set up camp and started a hunger strike near Apple's headquarters. This in response to Apple's recent airdrop restrictions in the Chinese market, reported to expand to global markets. The activist told NTD's David Lam why he felt compelled to do it.
A Chinese activist started a hunger strike near Apple's headquarters in Cupertino on Monday. This comes in response to Apple changing its airdrop restrictions in China.
The direct reason for my hunger strike is because Tim Cook just stops and restricts airdrop functions in China, and there is no response to the media and the public. So I think we need a response from Tim Cook and Apple. Yes.
Axios reported that a November 9th Apple update restricted sharing features in the Chinese market. After a 10-minute limit when sharing files and photos to the Everyone setting, devices will then switch to share with contacts only. The move allegedly followed the widespread demonstrations in China, where people are showing dissent towards the Chinese regime's COVID restrictions. When the demonstrations in China began, people used AirDrop as a means to share files and images with nearby devices, helping them to evade China's online censorship. Wang says this limits the Chinese people's ability to communicate safely.
In China, the people only are allowed to use AirDrop for 10 minutes. It's ridiculous. And it's only happened after 1 week of the A4 revolutions. I don't think it's a coincidence. And that's the only safe way for them to communicate with each other, because the internet and social media are fully controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. So I don't think it's a coincidence, yes.
On Wednesday, TechCrunch and Mac Rumors reported that Apple expanded the AirDrop restriction to the iOS 16.2 beta. Apple says the feature is an effort to cut down on spam sent in crowded areas like malls, and originally planned to roll out the feature globally starting in 2023. NTD reached out to Apple for comment but did not hear back by airtime. Wang says the new restrictions will suppress information about the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's, hard COVID restrictions, lockdowns, and other human rights violations.
They cannot go out of their own house, and all of their behavior are controlled by the government, because they have the QR code, which is to monitor their behavior, to monitor their step every day.
Such as the case of the Urumqi fire from November 24th, in which at least 10 people died trapped in a burning apartment building in China. This sparked the many A4 or white paper protests throughout the world, calling an end to the CCP's tyrannical rule.
Right now, if we don't pay attention to it, they will just expand and expand. And one day, the human rights in United States will be affected, yes.
Wang flew in from out of town and would like for several demands to be met.
The first demand for us is stop exploitations labor rights in China. We all know that Apple is collaborate Foxconn to just exploiting our human labor rights and to lock down our workers in a big factory and do not allow them to go out. And the second is just fully restore the airdrop functions, which is strictly restricted in China. And the third is Apple should not censor our people anymore. We all know that we cannot download any VPN on the Apple Store in China. And the last one is to condemn the concentration camp for Uyghurs, yes.
More demonstrations are expected to be held in solidarity throughout the world. Now, Wang has been here for 3 days, and he's planning to stay for a total of 7 days for this hunger strike. And he's hoping for more people to join him on Saturday, December 10th, for the Human Rights Day. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Former Twitter employees are suing Twitter again. This time, they claim the social media giant targeted female employees during the mass layoffs. Here's what they're alleging.
Former Twitter employees filed another class action lawsuit against the company for layoffs following Elon Musk's takeover.
As I said before, we did analyses of the data of who got laid off on November 4th and found that 57% of women were laid off while 47% of men were laid off. And the statistical significance of those numbers is through the roof.
The new lawsuit alleges that the mass layoffs disproportionately affected female employees. Filed by Caroline Strifling and Willow Wren Turkle on December 7th, the former employees are asking a court to determine if Twitter violated federal anti-discrimination laws. The former employees are also seeking an injunction to bar Twitter from asking former employees for any releases of claims without first informing them about the lawsuit and providing contact information for the plaintiff's lawyers. The complaint also wants Twitter to, quote, reinstate female employees who wish to return to their jobs. They also seek compensation for, quote, emotional distress and punitive damages. So far, the former employees have initiated 4 lawsuits against Twitter. NTD reached out to Twitter for comment.
Twitter boss Elon Musk says some of the most important data from the Twitter files may have been hidden or even deleted. The Twitter files are the platform's internal discussions on suppressing free speech.
Yesterday, former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey asked why Musk didn't just release all the files at once without filter. Musk responded saying most important data was hidden from you too, and some may have been deleted, but everything we find will be released. This could have something to do with the recent firing of James Baker. He was Twitter's deputy general counsel. Before that, he worked for the FBI. According to the Twitter files, Baker told Twitter executives to go ahead with blocking the Hunter Biden laptop story. Baker was later in charge of vetting those messages before releasing them to journalists. Current management didn't know. Musk Tuesday said he fired Baker over concerns he suppressed important information. It's unclear when the next Twitter files will be released.
A former Theranos executive was given a longer sentence than that of its CEO. His attorney said they disagree with the result and plan to appeal.
Former Theranos executive Ramesh Sunny Balwani was sentenced Wednesday to nearly 13 years in prison for his role in the company's blood testing hoax.
We respectfully disagree with the result in the case. We're disappointed in the outcome, and we plan to appeal.
It's slightly longer than that given to the CEO, who was his lover and accomplice in one of Silicon Valley's biggest scandals. A jury found Balwani guilty of fraud and conspiracy in July. His sentencing came less than 3 weeks after Elizabeth Holmes, the company's founder and CEO, who received more than 11 years in prison. The scandal revolved around the company's false claims about a device they had developed. The claims were that they could scan for hundreds of diseases and other potential problems with just a few drops of blood taken with a finger prick. After years of promoting the technology, Holmes and Balwani were warned that the blood tests were inaccurate, but they continued to raise money from investors, including software magnate Larry Ellison and media magnate Rupert Murdoch. The technology was deployed in some Walgreens stores.
Famed ex-attorney Michael Avenatti has been sentenced by a California court to another 14 years in federal prison. He is already serving 5 years for extortion in New York. Here's more.
On December 5th, an Orange County court sentenced suspended attorney Michael Avenatti to 14 years in federal prison for tax and wire fraud. He was convicted of defrauding former clients out of millions of dollars and trying to stop the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, from taking payroll taxes from a coffee shop he owned. According to the Department of Justice, Avenatti stole approximately $12.3 million from 4 California clients in lawsuits that he won on their behalf. He then lied to them about receiving the funds. Prosecutors also said Avenatti was a, quote, tax cheat and cited his failure to pay $3.2 million in payroll taxes after his firm acquired Tully's Coffee in bankruptcy. He then obstructed the IRS when the agency attempted to collect the amount due. U.S. District Judge James Selna said that Avenatti's sentence would run consecutively for the 5 years he is already serving for convictions in New York for an extortion scheme against Nike and for stealing from adult film actress Stormy Daniels. That brings his total time to about 19 years in prison. The 51-year-old will have to serve at least 85% of the sentence.
We are going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. New research suggests that pandemic lockdowns cause undue stress on children. The result was making their brains age faster than normal. And more data confirms that more people are leaving the state than coming. This new batch is from a moving company. And a new exhibit is coming to Los Angeles. It features lost items and stories from illegal immigrants who crossed the desert from Mexico to the U.S. That and more on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Lang Zhang. A new Stanford study found that pandemic lockdown stress negatively influenced adolescent brains.
According to a recently published Stanford study, stress from pandemic lockdowns prematurely aged adolescent brains. The purported negative effects include poor mental health and premature brain aging. Researchers came to these conclusions by comparing pre-pandemic MRI scans of adolescent brains with post-pandemic scans. Researchers discovered changes in brain structure that suggested faster aging than the children's bodies. Prior research linked exposure to early life adversity such as violence, neglect, and family dysfunction to similar negative impacts. According to the study, these included poor mental health and maladaptive development that may accelerate brain aging. Researchers said, quote, as a result of social isolation and distancing during the shutdown, virtually all youth experienced adversity in the form of significant departures from their normal routines. They added that it's unclear whether this premature aging will have long-term impacts on the age group's mental health and brain function. But the negative effects of pandemic stress don't end there. Students across the nation are still heavily affected by pandemic learning loss, according to this year's National Report Card. Education officials also said this year's declines in math are the largest ever recorded in the country. 1 in 4 fourth graders tested below the mathematics standard in 2022, increasing from 2019's level of 19%.
A moving company confirmed with its data that more people left the state than came in last year. That's with changes brought on by the years of lockdowns.
According to the United Van Lines National Movers Study, there were 27,000 moves made in and out of California in 2021. 59% of those moves were outbound. The U.S. Census Bureau's 2021 American Community Survey reported that there were 118 outbound moves from California per every 100,000 households in the state. The trend of relocation is nationwide. California had the fifth highest share of outbound movers. The top 4 states are New Jersey, Illinois, New York, and Connecticut. One of the reasons for the moving trend is remote work policies established in many companies during COVID lockdowns. Many Californians took advantage of not needing proximity to their workplace.
Authorities arrested 27 people involved in illegal sideshows in Southern California. The arrests came after a 2-year investigation into a street racing instigator.
The California Highway Patrol arrested 27 people on Tuesday connected to street racing. It comes after a 2-year investigation into a street racing promoter who illegally signed off over 250 citations. The citations were given out in Los Angeles and Orange counties. Authorities arrested 21-year-old Angel Zahid Sanchez Peralta in August 2022 for signing off the citations for profit. He also used names of current and retired law enforcement officers. Officials searched his residence during the investigation. After 2 years, they arrested 27 people involved in the illegal and dangerous activity. The CHP is cracking down on street racing and will seek criminal prosecution for drivers and those assisting them. Authorities ask for the public's help to stop street racing. Anyone with information can contact their local law enforcement agency.
There is a new exhibition in Los Angeles showcasing the belongings left by illegal immigrants crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. The items were recovered from the Arizona desert.
A new exhibit in Los Angeles, called the Hostile Terrain 94 Undocumented Migration Project, tells the story of illegal immigrants who crossed the Sonoran Desert. The desert spans Baja California, including parts of Southern California, Arizona, and northern Mexico. The exhibit tells people's stories through showcasing personal items and other belongings found abandoned during their trek in the desert.
You know, migrants coming across the U.S.-Mexico border, the majority of them really come through the Arizona desert, or at least they did for decades. Now people are starting to come once again through eastern California as well as through South Texas. But those coming through southern Arizona, which has been millions of people, experience extreme environmental conditions. So they're walking through this harsh desert landscape that is devoid of water sources. They're facing extreme heat during the summer. They're facing extreme cold during the winter.
Jason DeLeon is executive director of the Undocumented Migration Project and the Calibri Center for Human Rights. He has been going into the Sonoran Desert since 2009 to collect and document items left behind by people who crossed the desert. The exhibit features children's clothing, backpacks, shoes, and missing persons flyers.
I think people tend to have a strong emotional reaction to this exhibition, whether that's sadness or anger or disbelief. I think that it's a full range of emotions, which is important. I think we need to have all of those things, because this is this humanitarian crisis that's been happening for decades that no one is ever talking about. It remains well hidden because it's happening in the desert, out in the middle of nowhere. And so, you know, for us, it's important for people to come here and engage with this in a meaningful way.
Hostile Terrain 94, the exhibition's title, refers to a 1994 U.S. Border Patrol policy, which DeLeon said has caused illegal immigrant deaths in the Arizona desert to spike.
They're often traveling without a compass or a map, using the stars to navigate and other natural markers on the landscape. But it's really a very intense, both physical and emotional experience for folks. And thousands of people have died during this process. There's been about 4,000 sets of recovered remains from Arizona alone. And much of the forensic work that we've done really suggests that number dramatically underrepresents the actual number of folks who have died during this process.
U.S. authorities made more than 2.2 million illegal immigrant arrests at the U.S.-Mexico border in 2022, higher than any year on record. The number soared to record highs under President Biden, fueled by attacks from Republicans who say his policies are too lenient. Biden administration officials have said they aim to create a more orderly and humane immigration system, but have struggled to handle the operational and political challenges that have accompanied the high level of crossings. The exhibit is showing at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes in downtown Los Angeles until July 9th, 2023.
Now let's check in with NTD's Thomas Christian for today's Sports Roundup.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup. Shortstop Xander Bogaerts has agreed to an 11-year, $280 million contract with the San Diego Padres. Bogaerts was moved by an overwhelming amount of money for someone of his standing, with San Diego's president of baseball operations, A.J. Preller, not looking to get beat out by another team with the signing. Bogaerts joins an already stacked Padres infield and will likely push Fernando Tatis Jr. to the outfield or a designated hitter spot. In 150 games with the Boston Red Sox this year, the 30-year-old totaled 15 home runs and 73 RBIs on a .307 batting average. He is 3 years removed from hitting 33 homers in 2019. Rookie Simone Fontecchio made a last-second game-winning dunk just after Malik Beasley hit a three-pointer as the Utah Jazz scored 5 points in the final 7.8 seconds to earn an improbable 124-123 victory over the Golden State Warriors on Wednesday in Salt Lake City. Jordan Poole led all scorers with 36 points in a game in which both teams were missing key players. Poole made one of two free throws with 13.3 seconds remaining to give the Warriors a seemingly safe 4-point lead after they trailed by 11 early in the fourth quarter. But the Jazz then pulled off a win with a wild ending. The Warriors are now 13-13 and in 10th place in the NBA Western Conference. Jazz 124, Warriors 123. Giannis Antetokounmpo poured in a game-high 35 points. Jrue Holiday was nearly as productive with 31, and Milwaukee pulled away late to defeat visiting Sacramento. Domantas Sabonis had a 23-point, 12-rebound double-double for Sacramento, which got within 1 point with 10 minutes and 27 seconds to play, but could not catch the hosts. Bucks 126, Kings 113. 2022 #1 overall pick Paolo Banchero sank 6 free throws down the stretch to cap his game-high 23-point effort as Orlando defeated the LA Clippers in overtime. Ivica Zubac and Nicholas Batum each scored 16 points in the loss, with Zubac also grabbing 13 rebounds. Kawhi Leonard finished with 14 points and 7 rebounds. Magic 116, Clippers 111. In overtime, Pascal Siakam scored 25 points and 10 rebounds, and Fred VanVleet had 25 and 7 assists as host Toronto defeated the depleted LA Lakers. The Lakers were without their 2 stars, LeBron James with an ankle injury and Anthony Davis, who was out with an illness. OG Anunoby scored 23 points for Toronto, which led by 23 at the half and never looked back. Dennis Schroeder scored 18 for the Lakers. Russell Westbrook added 16 and 9 rebounds. Thomas Bryant had 16. Kendrick Nunn had 15. Lonnie Walker IV scored 12, and Austin Reeves had 10. Raptors 126, Lakers 113. And that's all for your California Today Sports Roundup.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.